Heads up, fans. Brutus is on the loose, and he's headed to a natty, baby. This is your boy Mason. This is another episode of the World Famous Pod, and we are talking about some of the highs and lows of the moments during the Ohio State victory over Texas, officially kicking the SEC out of playoff contention and putting an end to the narrative that they're good at football, because they're not. Ohio State wins the Cotton Bowl in Jerry World against Texas, basically a road game. As much as Steve Sarkisian didn't want to make it out to be one of those in the press tour leading up to it, it's what it was. Though Buckeye fans were loud. You could hear them from the TV. I think right even before the coin toss, there was the stadium OHIO, which was really cool to hear. But Ohio State 28, Texas 14. Again, Ohio State's headed to the Natty in Atlanta to play against Notre Dame. Another great matchup between two of college's blue bloods. We'll cover all of that in a later episode between then and now. But again, some of the moments that were the pivotal ones in this game is going to be kind of on the slate today. This is probably Ohio State's most difficult challenge that they've faced throughout the playoffs so far. Each round, each team that they played has gotten a little bit more tape on them, first of all, but each team as well has stacked on some more talent from what a previous team had, or that's what it kind of seems like. As I've said before, Tennessee had really, really good pass rush, and that was the first step for Ohio State to overcome, was to see what their offensive line looked like against a really good pass rushing defense. Next game was Oregon. They had the same kind of a good pass rush, but they also had a really solid offensive line. And the question there was whether or not Ohio State could get pressure on Dillon Gabriel and make him make some mistakes or hold the ball on too long, whatever the case was. And that's what happened there. And in this game, the next piece on top of having getting good defensive pressure from your opponent having a solid offensive line, was the pass defense that Texas has been so talked about. And they did a pretty good job against this Ohio State team. They held Jeremiah Smith to just 3 yards. But thankfully for them, or for Ohio State, we have a lot more weapons than just the best freshman in college football. Unfortunately, he didn't win that award. That went to one of Texas's linebackers. But here, he's the best freshman in college football. But yeah, this wasn't a game where Ohio State was as explosive as they've been. They weren't hitting as many home runs on offense. The defense looked a little bit more. The offensive line had their hands full most of the time. It seemed kind of the way that, or it seemed at times that Texas was winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. The defense looked mortal at times. It's games like these ones where both opponents are so evenly matched that the deciding factor is just who can grab momentum first and who can ride that wave to victory. And there were some momentum swings that went back and forth. Ohio State had the win probability for most of the game, but there were times where Texas was able to gather momentum and kind of pull it back their way. The biggest one was this one of the biggest ones. I wouldn't say the biggest one. I'll talk about that one in a second. But this one, arguably the most famous play of that game was the Jack Sawyer scoop and score, 83 or 86 yards through the heart of Dallas. That was an epic moment. That was one I think all of us Buckeye fans have watched that on replay the last 2 days. The leading up to that play, it had kind of seemed that Texas, Ohio State had just scored. Texas was getting the ball off that Ohio State touchdown. They were just down 7. They start the ball on the 25, and they put together arguably the best drive of the game for themselves. They get down to the Ohio State 6 in like 8 plays or something like that. 2 pass interference calls later, the ball's at the 1-yard line, and Ohio State's defense, the one that's been talked about as the bend don't break defense, the one that shows up in the red zone and gets the stops, the one that we saw against Penn State earlier this year, the goal line stand. That's the defense that shows up in a big moment. So Texas is first and goal from the 1, run straight into the line of scrimmage, no yards. You see Tuimoloau coming around the side, kind of wrapping up the running back there from the waist down and holding him in position while the rest of the defense kind of just plows right in front of him. Next play, they toss out to the side. Ends up being a 7-yard loss because Caleb Downs is a freak athlete. He hits a gap right through and slows up the running back to where Lathan Ransom can make it past his block, and he can put the final nail in or put the running back down there again for a 7-yard loss. Next play after that, a little pass deflected, falls short of the target. The final play, and this is the big moment. This is the Jack Sawyer legend moment. This is the one that should have been against Michigan, where he picked him off at like the 3-yard line or whatever. Unfortunately, when you lose the game, those plays don't get remembered. And this happening in the Cotton Bowl, happening to a guy that's from Pinkerton, Ohio. He was the first one to sign in the 2021 recruiting class for Ryan Day. He was the first of the seniors to say that he was coming back this year. This dude bleeds scarlet and gray, and this was his second chance at getting his Buckeye legend moment. He gets around the end. Quinn Ewers is trying to backpedal a little bit away from him while keeping his eyes down the field. He's coming full head of steam. Strip sack, ball bounces right to him, and he's off to the races. And I don't know who's slower, him or Ryan Day, but thankfully all of Texas's fast players were in the end zone already. The only one who was trying to keep up with him, I think Sonny Styles cut off, was a running back. Takes it 83 yards of the house and gets his moment where he's going to be a legend in Columbus forever because of that. That was a really, really cool play. Couldn't have happened to a better player for Ohio State, and one of the guys that really believes in the program and the brotherhood that exists there. That was, like I said, one of the biggest plays. You could definitely make a case for it being the biggest one, but there's another play that happened earlier in the game that I think is probably the most important play of the game, and that was the Travion Henderson touchdown. Ohio State, they grabbed momentum early by scoring on their first drive. Texas, finally gets on the board, and after stopping Ohio State on 2 or 3 of their drives, Texas gets on the board, with no time left before halftime. Ohio State's gonna, everybody watching at home is like, what's Ohio State gonna do? Are they gonna go into the half kind of licking their wounds and just trying to play, they get the kickoff, so just trying to play it safe, don't make any big mistakes, or are they going to take a shot here and be aggressive? And at first it kind of looked like they were. The play started, we had no idea what was going to happen. It didn't look like anything was going to happen. And then you see Travion come off of one of his blocks. You see Hinsman, Shabola, and Montgomery come off of their blocks, and Will Howard just dumps it over the top to Travion, and there is nothing but green in front of this guy. Every time I watch this video, I can't get over. There's 2 things I can't get over. First one is how fast Travion is, and it's crazy because I know he's fast. You see him outrun people all the time, but it's still amazing every single time. So that's one. The other one is watching these 3 linemen get up the field. The play starts 8 yards or so behind the line of scrimmage. These guys get upfield, and they're running for they get to the line of scrimmage. From there, it's another 10 to 15 yards before first contact with another Texas player. And Travion's just running behind him the whole time, just waiting for a hole to open up. And as soon as it does, boom, he's through it, and he's off to the races. But watching those guys get upfield, that was the key to that play happening. Having your big boys get out in front of Travion and just clear a path for him. And that play really stole back the momentum that Texas had worked basically since Ohio State's first drive to gain. it felt like they were kind of in the driver's seat a little bit after they tied the score, and then Travion rips the 75-yard touchdown run with 16 or 13 seconds left before halftime, and Ohio State just grabs momentum right back before half. The only time it kind of jumped back was when Texas had tied the game in the third quarter. It kind of gets back to even. And then there's another play that kind of jumps to mind, at least for me, that I know it probably won't be as memorable, but it's another very important play. And it's the one that happened right before Will Howard converted on his 18-yard. It was 4th and 2. He runs for 18. And that play is the pass completion to G. Scott. It was like 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9 at this point, and Ohio State was moving the ball down the field. This drive had kind of stalled out because I think they'd gotten a penalty that moved them back to 3rd and 9. That was the story of the game. Ohio State more so shooting themselves in the foot with drive-killing penalties than anything. This game, if that wouldn't have happened, this game could have gotten out of hand very quickly. But anyway, so they call a play having G. Scott on a crossing route across the middle. Will Howard dumps it off to him, and it was thrown a little bit behind him, so he couldn't really turn up the field and get to the yard to gain for a first down. But initially, I think he was contacted at after 5 yards or so, able to spin out of that. Kind of tightrope the sideline and dive and get closer, make it 4th and 2 versus a 4th and 5, because that really changes kind of how an offense would approach that situation. If he doesn't fight like that and he doesn't fight that hard, then we might not end up going up a score, and then we might not have that Jack Sawyer touchdown play. So kudos to him for really trying to earn the extra yard. And then we all know what happens next. Will Howard runs and then stumbles for an 18-yard play, trips and falls on his own accord, which that's happened a few times with Will Howard. He came into Ohio State as a guy. This is a little sidebar, but he kind of came into Ohio State as a guy that was kind of touted for his running ability, and we were excited we were going to get a more of a dual threat quarterback. And, there's one play of him running. It's against Texas, of all teams, at Kansas State the year before, where he's busting a 30-something yard touchdown run. He's outrunning the whole defense, dives in the end zone, and it's shot from the back of the end zone. And I know anybody who is watching this knows what clip I'm talking about, because it's the same one that gets shown over and over again. And I realize that it's the same one that gets shown over and over again because maybe he's not the runner that we thought he was, because he falls down a lot by himself when he gets open field. He gets little happy feet, and the turf monster reaches up and grabs him or something. But either way, jumping back in, he gets the 18 yards, falls down at the 20, 18-yard line, somewhere around there. One thing leads to another, and then Quinshawn is cashing into pay dirt for his second touchdown in the game on a 1-yard run to put the Bucks up 21-14 late in the game. And from there, the rest is history. Texas, they get the ball back on the next drive, get down to the Ohio State 1. Jack Sawyer takes it back the other way. This game was full of highs and lows. There was a lot of almost the surrender cobra pose where hands are behind the head and elbows are flared out wide. I did that a few times where I just couldn't understand what was happening. There was a lot of trying to shift the mojo from where we were watching the game at. A lot of standing, not a lot of sitting, some hunched over positions, similar to that of Urban Meyer from back in the day when he would stand on the sideline where hands are on his knees. So just doing anything that we could do, because obviously that's what helps a team win, is what you at home watching can do to help a team win. Um, but yeah, this one was a fun one to watch. Um, it's fun when your team. It's fun when your team wins. Period. That's a given. Um, it's fun early on, like in the games against Tennessee and Oregon, when you jump out to such a big lead and you can kind of relax the rest of the game. It's fun watching those ones. But then this one, it's a lot more fun, a lot more satisfying afterwards when you can kind of exhale a little bit, knowing that your team fought all the way through it and then came out the victor. With that, there's just a few shout outs I got to give. There's We'll do four, and there is a bonus one. First one, got to go to Will Howard. He's been an absolute dog this playoff run, and he's been that guy. He's been that guy probably since the second half of the season. I think a real turning point for him was the Penn State game. He didn't play particularly great. He didn't play bad, but you can see the leadership quality that he possesses and where he was able to actually take that and apply it to how he plays the game of football. And he's only gotten better and better from there. And he's, believe it or not, he's third on Ohio State for single season passing yards behind C.J. Stroud and Dwayne Haskins. So elite company there. He's in the college football playoff. He's on pace to throw the ball for more than right around 1,200 yards. So 1,200 yards passing in 4 games against 4 of the best teams in college football. Again, if that's not elite, I don't know what is. He made one mistake last game through one interception, trying to get the ball to his playmaker, Jeremiah Smith. It was a mistake, but it wasn't like a dumb throwaway mistake. It was him trying to be aggressive. And you could see that throughout all of his throws. Texas's defense, their passing defense, is very good, and they close quick. You'd see it on replays from the sky cam view from behind, and you see the window that he's throwing into. At first, it looks like it's open, and then all of a sudden, the ball's about halfway there, and that window for the ball to get through to the receiver to make the catch just collapses. And he was starting to fit those balls early on into those tight windows, and he was taking his shots down the field, and I like to see that from him. He's not afraid to throw the ball, not afraid to make a mistake. He still threw for 280 some yards. I think he had a touchdown pass. Yeah, it went to Travion, the 75-yarder. So he could have had another one. I think Carnell Tate dropped a wide open one. His eyes got a little big. Was a little excited there. But we ended up cashing in later on a Quinshon Judkins run, who had a great game as well. So again, Will Howard has been a dude, an absolute dude, and I am relishing in watching him be successful for Ohio State. The next one obviously has to go to Jack Sawyer, Mr. Ohio. He's, again, the guy that bleeds scarlet and gray. We've talked about him a lot. Really showed up today. He had obviously the touchdown from the strip sack, taking it 83 yards to the house. He also had 3 tackles, another pass deflection, and one other tackle for a loss. So, another great game for him. I actually saw another stat for Jack Sawyer. He's like 6th or 8th in total sacks in Ohio State history. So, again, his name's been kind of quiet this season. Where we haven't heard his name as much as we'd hoped to, but he's, believe it or not, quiet. I don't know if quiet is the right word, but quietly been putting together the resume of one of what would be known as a Buckeye great. So again, shout out to Jack Sawyer. The third one here is basically any offensive player who caught a pass not named Jeremiah Smith. So Carnell Tate, I talked about this last time before going in of who was going to need, or maybe I put it on Instagram rather. Who was going to need a big game, or who were you going to need a big game out of? And we know that they were going to cover Jeremiah Smith. We know that Texas was not going to let Jeremiah Smith beat them. And decent game plan if Jeremiah Smith is the only weapon that you have. not that great of a game plan if you have guys like Travion and Quinshawn and Egbuka and G. Scott and Carnell Tate and even Will Kazmarek got in on the action. These guys, again, of Will Howard's 280 some passing yards, only 3 of them went to Jeremiah Smith. The other ones went to everybody else that I just named. So great job, everyone else, for really stepping up in a big moment when the team needed you to be a guy, be the dude. And we had 4 or 5 the dudes catching the ball from Will Howard. So great job to them as well. Another one, unsung hero who doesn't and continues to not get any praise from anybody is Donovan Jackson. And I get it. No one really knows like the offensive linemen as separate players. The linemen on the offensive line is typically thought of as a group, right? And you only know the ones that are important when they get hurt, and that's kind of it. This dude, I've talked about him before, basically on a weekly basis. This guy, again, slid over to play left tackle from playing guard his whole life. And it's just, I've never played football, but I have it on good authority that that's not an easy thing to do. And he's played against guys like Abdul Carter from Penn State. He's played against the line that came at him from the Michigan defensive line. He played Tennessee. He played Oregon. He played Texas. These guys, these are the best pass rushers that anybody has faced all year long. And this dude has gotten better week by week by week. And now he's playing at an elite level. So looking at his stat line from last night or 2 nights ago, he had no tackles on his side of the ball. He had no sacks on his side of the ball. He had no tackles for a loss. Like there was zeros. He allowed nothing to get. No one got by Donovan Jackson. So tip of the cap, feather in the cap, whatever the hell you want to call it. Gold star, reigning Buckeyes. This dude gets whatever accolade you want to call it. This dude should get it because he's been amazing on that side of the line. He's been a real anchor point for the line when they've needed someone to just step in and be a real leader with all the injuries and reshuffling that they've had. The last one is a little bit of a jab at the sports media talking heads that love to dog on, I already talked about him, Will Howard. He's not the best quarterback. He's not even the best quarterback in this college football playoff. He was the 4th best going into this round. He has been average at best this season, this, that, and the other. He had better stats this year than Dylan Gabriel, first of all, who was a Heisman finalist. I just mentioned how great he's been in Ohio State's single season record of Ohio State single season record holders. I've talked about how great he was in this college football playoff, particularly. I think it was Emmanuel Acho had a lot to say about Will Howard and how great Texas was. He went to Texas, so bias coming in here from him, but he had a lot to say about how average and not great Will Howard was. And then Will Howard just beat your quarterback in your home state, took your lunch, went home, ate it, got the trophy, going to the Natty. So, he's not the guy that you want to be talking about like this. You see what happens when Will Howard gets motivated. He wins football games. So, again, this is why I'm shouting out the sports media that has been hating on Will Howard. Keep talking because dude's going to keep balling. And that is what it is. So appreciate y'all for that. Again, more to come on the upcoming game for the national championship. I'm going to talk a little bit about Notre Dame between now and then and what that game looks like. But for now, let's relish in this W. And as always, let's go Bucks. Head to the Natty.